From floor plans to 5-year plans, business to finding balance, I'm Ashley Bruggeman, an interior designer with a love for beautiful living and a belief that style and substance go hand in hand. I'm pulling back the curtain on design, resilience, and entrepreneurship. Expect real talk, refined tips, and just the right mix of polish and personality. So pour something sweet and join me for a thoughtful conversation with a generous helping of charm and circumstance. Hi, friend, and welcome back to Charm and Circumstance. I'm your host, Ashley Bruggeman, and today's episode is a deeply personal one. We're talking about reinvention in midlife, a topic that doesn't get enough credit for how empowering and complex and beautiful it can be. For many of us, our 40s and 50s mark a season of major transition. Kids are growing up, careers are shifting, bodies are changing, and we're suddenly reevaluating what we want. Sometimes for the first time in years. I'm here to tell you midlife is not a crisis, it's a calling. In this episode, I'll share my own experience navigating reinvention, what I've had to unlearn, what I'm still learning, and the surprising freedom that comes when you start asking, what do I want now? Let's talk about what it means to evolve with grace and build a life that fits this new version of you. So there are countless old stereotypes and cultural narratives around midlife. Do you remember when your parents turned 40? I do. They had tombstones on their cakes and everything was gray and themed over the hill. I don't know about you, but I certainly didn't feel anywhere near over the hill when I turned 40, and I would have likely hurt somebody for putting tombstones on my birthday cake. Then there's the good old midlife crisis stereotype. The middle-aged man in a shiny new convertible attempting to recreate life as if he was 25 years younger. Though I think this is the worst-case scenario. I'll confess, I looked forward to turning 40 since I was maybe 20. I just wanted it to be taken seriously. Not overlooked because I was young, but maybe that's just something that comes with being a woman. Of course, as women in our 40s and 50s, 4 out of 5 of us experience problematic menopause symptoms like hot flashes, sleep disturbances, and brain fog. Midlife can also be a vulnerable time for the onset of functional limitations and disability. According to the NIH, one study showed that up to 1/4 of recently menopausal women report having substantial functional limitations. Mobility-related disabilities are prevalent, with one study showing 39% of women reporting moderate to extreme difficulty in mobility. Several health conditions see a significant increase during midlife, including hypertension, high cholesterol, sleep disorders, acid reflux, and conditions related to joint and muscle pain. According to the Mayo Clinic, these, plus a few additional conditions, increased by 45% or more between the ages of 40 and 59. Rates of depression, anxiety, and serious psychological distress can be highest in midlife, particularly among women, according to the NIH. Midlife women often face increased caregiver responsibilities for both children and aging parents, leading to potential work-life balance challenges. And midlife women may experience a midlife crisis related to finances, with some carrying more debt than other age groups. So I hope you're still with me, because that was pretty depressing. But I'm here to say, what if we replace midlife crisis with midlife clarity, a new beginning, not the beginning of the end? Once you do get into your 40s, it's just wild to believe that you've actually hit this milestone. You start to realize your life maybe isn't what you expected it to be at this point. Has your career stalled? Is your marriage dull and more effort than you're willing to give? Or have you already found yourself divorced and having given up on dating? Have you experienced the life you dreamed of as a child? Traveled where you always dreamed of? Tried new things? Grown in your faith? Midlife doesn't need to be a crisis. Instead, it can be an awakening of ambition, boundaries, beauty, and peace. Now, in no way did I come to this conclusion on my own. It comes from years of trial and error, years of reading and learning, and some years of really great therapy. I think at this point in my life, I always figured I'd be remarried with a leadership role inside corporate America, or that as a single empty nester, I'd take that freedom and move to Paris for a while and take advantage of all the things that I didn't right out out of college. Could I still do these things? Probably. Do I still want to? Not really. But what changed? When I really think about it, it's that I'm happy and content with my current life, even though it's not what I ever imagined for myself, even a year ago. Have you ever thought about where your identity comes from? I'll admit it's one thing to think about, and it's another to actually lose it and realize how much of your identity was wrapped up in whatever it was you just lost. A career, a marriage, or relationship, raising your kids. So in that regard, my identity has changed countless times. Each time a brutal reckoning with my own expectations for my life. I know I'm guilty of romancing things far beyond what they actually are capable of being in real life. So I think when I was younger, I saw these goals as much more fulfilling than they could ever really be. They each come with their own level of added stress, pressure, and even emptiness. The growth that I've experienced in my 40s has led me to realize that my definition of success has changed drastically. Success now looks like peace, boundaries, freedom, accepting reality for what it is instead of always wishing for something different. I know I would have never had the guts to start my own business, let alone my own podcast when I was younger. I would have wanted to and would just tell myself that I'll be ready later. Maybe that's the gift that comes from the realization that time is passing you by quicker and quicker, that if you don't just do the things now, they'll never happen, that your world won't end if you fail, because at this age, you've got experience of falling flat on your face already, and you learned that you can heal and you can get up again. And there's a courage and vulnerability that I'm definitely still working on, but that has drastically developed as I've grown older. All of this is the result of gifts that come with midlife. Yes, there are gifts. It's not all joint pain, sleepless nights, and gray hair. So I think that there are at least 4 gifts of midlife. I'm sure there's more, but I hope that these encourage you as you go through the difficult things. So the first gift we're going to discuss is confidence, clearer values, and stronger boundaries. So clearly there's a bonus here because it's really 3 in 1. So confidence, there is a confidence that comes with experience. It's the knowledge that you can survive the difficult things, the knowledge that things aren't always what they seem, and the knowledge that everyone we encounter is just another human with the same flaws and heartaches, hopes and dreams, and needs that we have. Not someone to be intimidated by or envious of. Confidence is the realization that we're all much more alike than we often realize. And then clearer values. So knowing what we want, knowing what we don't want, from jobs to relationships to how we want to spend our free time. Why is this the gift of midlife? Well, think back to when you were in your 20s. Did you know or understand your values back then? I certainly didn't. I had no clue. The version of me that graduated college is so far from the version of me that exists today, and I'm telling you, I am so grateful for this. And then boundaries. So it's been quoted, never put the key to your happiness in somebody else's pocket. The king of boundaries himself, Dr. Henry Cloud, has written several books on boundaries through the years. Many others have followed, and now the term boundaries is a mainstream concept. But studying them and practicing them are 2 different things. I know, because I'm guilty of it. I think boundaries coexist with confidence and clear values because the existence of these 2 enable us to actually draw the boundaries. And on the flip side, drawing and holding up our boundaries develops the next level of confidence and clearer values. Okay, so now the second gift of midlife. I think that this is the ability to prioritize what matters and letting go of what doesn't. This is actually wisdom, a certain level of maturity, the ability to conserve your energy for what matters most to you instead of giving it away by getting upset over the inconveniences of life, or even more so, the difficult people that we encounter. This hasn't always been easy for me, and there are times when it still isn't. I'm sure you've heard the advice, will it matter in 5 years? Then don't let it matter now. I think about that often because it's so true, isn't it? And at this point in life, we realize how quickly it all goes by. So who wants to spend any more time than we have to letting things get to us that were never meant to matter? There's a wonderful quote attributed to George Lucas. We're all living in cages with the doors wide open. This has definitely been me until I was brave enough to address the cage I found myself in so that I could begin to navigate my way out. And I didn't do this alone. All right, so the third gift of midlife is the ability to say no with grace and yes with alignment. This follows the ability to prioritize what matters most. I recently had a dear friend who was dealing with making a very, very tough decision, a decision that would shape the rest of her life, that would really affect her family and every aspect of life as she knows it. It was hard to watch her struggle with it, and there were so many pros and cons to going either direction with this decision, but none of it was black and white, because of course, when you've experienced a bit of life, you've come to the realization that life is never black and white. She was finally able to make a decision based on her priorities, not that she didn't have to grieve the idea of what she was passing up, but she was able to say no with grace and yes with alignment to what she knows is her utmost priority, which means in 5 years, when she looks back, she'll have made the correct decision. And the fourth, but of course not final, gift of midlife is that you're less performative and more authentic. This is tied to being highly concerned about what others are going to think. It's so human to struggle with this. I know I certainly do, but so much less than I ever used to. How about you? Do you find yourself scripting out people's hypothetical reactions? I used to do this and it sucked. I didn't even realize I was doing it. It was that normal to me. Have you ever made a decision for or against something just because of how others would respond? I'd say that I just didn't even know myself well enough in my 20s to make authentic decisions. So many of the decisions I made were based on the limits of what I knew then, what was my normal, which very often wasn't actually who I know now that God made me to be. From career decisions to relationships to politics, all of it was based on my limited experiences. But with age comes the ability to evolve and to see things from a much broader perspective. This alone is an incredible gift. So I want to offer you some questions to really contemplate on. Spend time really thinking through the details of these things, maybe journal or whatever you need to do to really get deep into who you are and who you want to be. So the first question to ask yourself is, what am I craving more of? Are you lonely? Do you need more deep connections in your life? Do you have dreams or goals that you know you're capable of achieving, but you're just too scared to take that first step? Do you need more boundaries in your life? Do you leave conversations or time with certain people feeling depleted and resentful? Do you need more authenticity? Have you tied your identity to something or someone that will cause waves if you make the move to evolve? Who do you want to be in 5 years, in 10 years, or 20? Are you heading that direction, or are you walking a different road? One that requires you to be honest with yourself and admit that you want to show up differently in this life? The second overarching question to consider is, what needs to be released? What old ideas are you still held captive by? Ideas you don't even truly believe, but they're all you've known. What patterns do you keep cycling through? This has been paramount for me, and honestly, it took working with a therapist to identify and improve upon. But often enough, there are also patterns that are blatantly obvious to us that don't require a therapist intervention. They could be simple things like spending too much time on your phone or staying silent when what you really need to do is ask for help, or allowing the things that aren't your top priorities to take over your life. So finally, the fourth question to ask yourself, what does ease look like to you right now? I think this is an interesting one because it's a different spin on what do I enjoy doing. Obviously, there can be things that you enjoy doing, but that aren't easy. And when it comes to midlife, we've developed skill sets that allow a lot more things to be easy, though they never would have been decades ago. Some examples might be public speaking, going to dinner by yourself, making new friends, carrying on a conversation with a stranger, or the ability to admit hard realities to yourself and do something about them. So wherever you land with these questions, I hope that you will spend the time to really think these things through and be honest with yourself. And remember that you're not behind if all of this is new to you. You're just becoming more of yourself. Reinvention is not failure. It's wisdom in motion. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with me. I hope this episode gave you permission to rethink what midlife can be and remind you that it's never too late to evolve, dream, or pivot. If you enjoyed today's episode, I'd love to hear from you. Come join the conversation on Instagram. You can follow my design work at Ashley Morgan Interiors or follow the podcast at Charm and Circumstance for more inspiration and behind the scenes. Until next time, remember, this season is yours to define. Thanks for joining me on Charm and Circumstance. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and follow along on Instagram, because charm is personal and circumstance is what you make of it.